Welcome to the Life of Hair. My name is James Atkinson. Thank you very much for choosing to join into this week's episode. Now, in this week's episode, we are going to look at a new channel that I've just come across called the Blowout Professor. And he's done a video a little while ago called The Hair Care Mistakes That Will Ruin Your Hair. Now, I've watched a little bit of this and I thought it was very, very interesting. So I thought I'd share it with you guys. And I'll give you some of my thoughts and feelings as we go through. But if you haven't found him on YouTube yet, then go and check him out because he seems like he's got some really good information. I haven't seen many of his videos, so can't vouch for all of them, but for the ones that I have seen, he does seem to have some really good information to share. And I like the style of videos. He looks like, you know, he's got a very nice manner about him in the way that he goes about hair. So check him out. And if you haven't seen my videos before and you're new here and you've just discovered the Life of Hair, then please go over and subscribe. There's 400 tutorials on how to do hair here on the channel for you to enjoy. So well worth hitting the subscribe button.
Let's get into it with a story about one of my clients. This particular client told me that no matter what she did, it was impossible for her to go more than one day without washing her hair. I probably don't need to tell you this, but washing your hair every day strips your hair of its natural moisture, which makes it dry and brittle and easily damaged.
100% agree with that. By the way, that's a question I still get asked a lot, even after doing clients for years and years and years. Should I wash my hair every day? Exactly what he said. It does take away all the natural moisture and takes away the natural sebum, sebaceous oil that your scalp secretes, which does help to keep your hair nice and soft and moisturized. Or it's a natural oil, so we're putting oils back into our hair artificially, but we actually create an oil that will moisturize our hair.
The first step on your healthy hair journey is being able to go 3 days between washes, so I started asking her a bunch of questions to figure out how we could fix it.
Now that's something I've never heard or never thought of before. The first step to a healthy hair journey is to go 3 days in between washes, which is a great idea. So I think he's probably going to let us know during this video how you long out those visits between washing your hair and not washing your hair. So the story I've heard, this part of it, is quite an interesting story, and it's actually something I've never thought of, and this primarily the reason that I thought I'd jump on here. I didn't want to own this. I wanted him to tell you all.
The very first question that I asked her was how long did her hair stay clean when she got it done at the salon? And she told me that it would actually stay clean for 4 days. So we know it's possible. We just knew something was going on at home. We just had to figure out what that was. I ended up going over everything from her, from the shampoo that she uses to her washing technique, which is actually really important, to which products that she was using in her hair. And I could not figure it out. I had no idea. A few months later, she came back in all excited. She's like, Chris, guess what? I figured it out. I know exactly how to go 3 days between washes now. It turned out that she had been using the exact same brush for years without ever cleaning it. So
Fascinating. I have never thought of that. So if your brush is dirty, make sure you take those old hairs out. I just would have never have thought of that. I mean, genius and great for her to figure it out, obviously. This one's on her. She figured this one out. But definitely something I wouldn't have thought about asking a client. I would just assume their brush is clean. But obviously we shouldn't make assumptions in life because, well, that's the root of a lot of problems. So there's one for you guys. If your clients are struggling to keep their hair clean or you're struggling to keep your hair clean, make sure that brush is clean.
every time she got out of the shower and had clean hair, she would brush it with this old brush with all this dirty, gross buildup on it, put it right back on her hair, make it gross. So from then on, whenever I'm trying to help somebody who has oily hair, I always ask them, how often are you cleaning your brushes? Because it can make a big difference. And it's not all or nothing. It may be that you have a dirty brush that's taking you from 4 days down to only 3 or 2 days. So even if your brush is only a little bit dirty, clean it. Leaving some hot tools do less damage. You'll see some hot tools advertise themselves as safer than other hot tools, as in they do less damage, but this is really misleading. I've had a ton of clients in my salon completely destroy their hair thinking that these safe products will protect their hair, and the best way I can show you is what I call the oven mitt principle. Let's say that you're baking some chicken in the oven. If you reach your hand in and try and grab it, you're gonna burn your hand, so you can't do that. But you have an amazing idea. You are gonna turn the temperature down to 350 degrees That way, it doesn't burn your hand. That's an absolutely terrible idea, and it's pretty obvious. 350 is still gonna burn your hand, and if you change the temperature, you're gonna mess up the entire recipe. All you had to do to protect your hand was put on an oven mitt and everything would have been fine. So you don't really need that plan at all. But that plan is the exact same thing that you're trying to do when you buy one of these safer hair tools. That's because those safe hair tools are still gonna burn your hair. 350, 400, they're both super hot. They're both gonna damage your hair if you don't use a heat protectant. The terrible thing is, people usually don't use heat protectant with these tools because they're labeled as the safe, perfect temperature.
Really, really interesting. They've got it in Fahrenheit because this is obviously American, and over here we would say 180 degrees. But even 180 degrees is the same temperature as a deep fat fryer in a chip shop. If you don't have chip shops wherever you are, any cooking oil that you fry things in is around that temperature. So it's very, very difficult for people to comprehend when it's written here, optimum styling temperature, no extreme heat styling damage. And that's because it's not in the kind of 220 range, which previous styling tools would go up to. And they didn't also had any temperature limiters on them. So the longer they were on, the hotter they would get. But that is a really, really good point. And I know what he's going to go on to say now, although I've not seen this particular clip, is that he's going to say use a heat protectant. And heat protectants are kind of one of those products that a lot of my clients still believe they're quite sticky, and they kind of, the hair will, you can feel them in there. A lot of the heat protectants now have got no hold. They've got zero styling qualities to them. They are exclusively to just protect the hair from the heat. So that is really, really important to remember, and I think that's something that a lot of us remember from heat styling products back in the day when you were using these heat styling products, and they created this residue on the hair, and it really made the hair feel really sticky and gross. So that is definitely something that has changed a lot in time. And if you are a client and you still think heat styling or heat protection products are like that, they've changed such an enormous amount. It's like mousse. Mousse is one of my favorite hair products, but a lot of people believe that mousse is going to make their hair sticky and crispy, but mousses have changed an enormous amount too. So these products evolve in time, and obviously you can look for specific styling products that don't do what you expect them to do. For example, heat protectants that are not stylers quite often just exclusively say they're a heat protectant and with no styling added benefits. If they have styling added benefits, they'll say heat protectant plus styling or hold, or give some kind of hold factor to them. Definitely something to bear in mind.
So people end up doing more damage with these than they would with other tools. And on top of that, these safer temperatures won't hold a curl or make your hair straight for days. So you have to go back the next day and redo it and apply even more heat, which is even more damaging to your hair.
Very good point. Very good point that they don't hold the curl as well. They don't hold your hair as straight as well. But that is, what he just said is slightly contradictory, because I've seen the science behind 180 degree temperatures, and yes, they don't hold the shape for as long, but they're not getting into the hair and really, heating up and cooking it basically into a new shape. So it swings in roundabouts. I would still use the safer tools with a heat protectant and do it more regularly than I would going in with a product that went up to 220 degrees and using a heat protectant and knowing that it's going to then hold that shape for a lot longer. That's more risky than doing it regularly with adding a heat protector into it. I'm not entirely sure I would say, well, use a tool that goes up to 220 but put heat protectant on and everything will be fine. Probably it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other if it's a baker's dozen. But when you say to yourself, like, please remember that whenever you put heat on your hair at any point, whether you've put heat protection, even your hairdryer, okay, and this is something that people forget, hairdryers get really hot, professional hairdryers get really hot. In fact, a professional hairdryer that's been running for 20 minutes, Dyson discovered this, is pretty much the same temperature as your straighteners, right? So heat protection shouldn't just go on because you're using styling, curling tools, it should just go onto your hair full stop before you put any heat on your hair. It's very important to remember.
Using the wrong hair ties. All right, so let's talk hair ties. If you know me, I'm all about the old school stuff that's worked forever and will continue to work forever. instead of the TikTok flavor of the months. But with hair ties, the old stuff needs to go away. It just needs to be gone. It doesn't work anymore. We have better stuff nowadays. The old school hair ties with the metal ring that rips your hair out shouldn't even be made anymore. I don't even know why they put them on the shelf. These should be put behind the counter with the cigarettes where they're all locked up with the Surgeon General warning what these will destroy your hair. Anything that catches your hair and rips it out is obviously really bad for your hair, and these are some of the worst culprits. And it's the exact same thing with old school rubber bands. Yes, we have them at the salon. You need them for some styles. I totally get it. Try to keep it to a minimum. Just be super careful when you're taking them out of your hair. For everyday use, I would use a scrunchie or an Invisibobble. These things, the Invisibobbles used to be really, really expensive, but now if you check on Amazon, they're super affordable. There's no reason not to use them. If you're not familiar, the Invisibobbles are basically shaped like an old phone cord. If you're old enough to remember that, basically what that does, it makes sure it doesn't crease your hair either. So you have a ponytail without a crease, makes life easier. I suggest them. Drying with a towel. When your hair is wet, some of the bonds that are keeping your hair together actually are broken and your hair becomes more fragile. That means you need to be a little bit more delicate with wet hair than dry hair. One of the absolute worst things you can do with your hair is drying it with what I call the washing machine method.
Absolutely. Remember, they're not broken, they're just softened. So you've got hydrogen bonds and disulfide bonds, and when you wet the hair, some of those bonds soften, and that's how you can reform the hair into a new shape. If they didn't soften, you couldn't then blow dry the hair curly or make it straight, whichever way around you're trying to do it. That is 100% true. And when the hair is wet, it's most elastic, and that's when it's got its largest potential to snap under tension. So when you're in the salon and we do strand testing and stuff and we stretch the hair, it's really, really important to remember to notify the clients that obviously at this point, this is when the hair's at its weakest. So like when you're trying to get knots out of the hair, for example, you're most likely to break the hair when you're brushing it. So that is something that you definitely need to bear in mind when you are educating clients. And if you're a client yourself, you definitely need to remember that when the hair is wet, this is when it is at its most fragile.
Does it look like I'm doing it? Basically, you take the towel and then you spin it really quickly over your hair, which is an absolutely terrible idea for a couple of reasons. Number one, like we said, when your hair's wet, it's more delicate than normal. So when you're spinning the towel around like that, it's really easy to pull a hair, put a whole bunch of tension on it, and snap it and break it without realizing it. If you have perfectly healthy hair, it's not that big of a deal. You don't have to act like you're drying your hair with a shroud of Turin, but if you have damage, it's a really good idea to be extra delicate. And number two, doing this motion creates a lot of knots and tangles in your hair, and a lot of people at home tend to go straight through the knots, ripping right through them, which does damage. It's not a good thing. At the very least, it's just gonna cost you extra time. Ideally, what you wanna do is take your microfiber towel and just press it into your hair. You don't need to move it a whole lot, just press it into your hair so it soaks up the water. That's all you need to do.
Also, the other thing that you can use is these type of towels. I don't know if you've ever seen these. For home use especially, and some salons use them. They're like a super absorbent type of towel, and as he said, just squeeze the hair. But if you use these super absorbent towels, they take out more water than a normal towel, and therefore you don't feel the need to like scrub your hair and washing machine dry it, as he mentioned previously. So that's something to definitely bear in mind. These work really well in the salon. I use scrummy disposable towels, which again are super absorbent, made of bamboo, and so you don't need to squeeze the hair or rub the hair really vigorously to extract the water. And the good thing about them is you can wring them out and you can also do it again. So if it's a lot of water in the hair, you can wring the towel out and then apply it back onto the head. So really good, great tip there about not using traditional towels to dry your hair. Now if you've only got a traditional towel, then fine, so be it, same rules apply. But if you want to invest in your hair and invest in the quality of your hair, grab yourself one of those super absorbent towels, and that will save you a lot of time, energy and effort and prevent you from doing the old washing machine jobby.
Detangling with the comb. Detangling with the comb is one of the all-time bad hair ideas. These things don't have any flex in them or any give, so if you snag a knot, you're gonna rip right through it and damage your hair. It's not what you want to do. At my salon, we always detangle hair with a brush that has flexible bristles. The flexible bristles, when they come into a knot, they flex away instead of ripping through it. It's much healthier for your hair. This is what you want to use. These are called wet brushes. And I actually spoke to someone the other day who was watching the videos and thought they were actually brushes that got wet. You don't need to wet your brush. This is just by a brand that's called Wet. Super easy on Amazon, super cheap. Check them out. Detangling naked hair. Another thing that you really want to keep in mind is that you should never start detangling your hair before you start putting your products in it. Detangling naked hair is much harder and takes a lot longer because the brush does not go through it nearly as easily as when...
Now this is definitely something that I think about a lot when people come to me in the salon and they say, oh, you've just combed through my hair much easier than I do at home, etc., etc. It's more than likely because we've put something on at the backwash that we've left in, or we sprayed something into the hair at the section that has allowed us to detangle. Now it seems very obvious, but I think as professionals we can do things that sometimes we do them on autopilot and we're not really keeping our clients up to date with where we are in the journey. We just have done it so many times that, you know, it's just habit. And so keeping our clients, especially our new clients that we may not have been on this journey for, and reminding our existing clients, and if you're a client of a salon and you wonder why the stylist just glides through your hair willy-nilly really easily, remember there's always more to it than meets the eye. So maybe ask them, what did they put on it to comb it through? And then that will help you understand how they did it so easily. Let's hear what he has to say.
When you have products in it. If you know me, I always recommend a leave-in conditioner go on your hair first, not a leave-in treatment, not a leave-in serum, not a leave-in cream, a leave-in conditioner. This is the base product of your hair routine. This is the easiest way to prevent dryness and keep your hair super hydrated. But on top of that, it's an amazing detangler, which reduces the risk of breakage when you're brushing your hair. Damaged hair is especially prone to breakage when you're doing this. So for all my blondes out there, going blonde usually means doing a lot of damage. If you find that your hair tangles easily, do not be afraid to use some extra of this to help you get through the knots. Don't force it through the wrong way. There are a ton of people still using shampoo the wrong way, and it really bums me out. I'll get emails from people saying, oh, Chris, I bought this shampoo that you recommended because I trusted you so much. But when I used it on my ends, it dried my ends out. Why would you do this to me? Why do you want me to have dry ends?
So shampoo is a really, really interesting thing that I think a lot of people don't truly understand, and actually took me a really long time as a professional hairdresser to understand shampooing hair. I'm really intrigued to hear what he's got to say, but I've heard it so many times when clients say, oh, I bought the shampoo and it didn't work for me, blah, blah, blah. In salon, I could wash your hair with just about anything and make it feel nice. You know, obviously the prolonged effects of a shampoo, you know, and what they do to the hair, that is a whole different strata and a whole different cup of tea. But the immediate use of a hair product and how we use it in a salon is always completely different. You know, you've probably got cupboardfuls of products at home if you're a frequent visitor to salons, and as a stylist you probably don't have that many products in there because you know how to kind of manipulate and work them to get your hair to feel a certain way. Now, obviously, one shampoo isn't enough to kind of fully judge a product, and that you can probably feel the differences if it's not the perfect product. It's maybe not as voluminous if your hair's fine and you use a really rich product, and vice versa if your hair's very thick and dry and you use a more volumizing product. There's enough there to feel the differences between the two. But I'm interested to hear what Chris has got to say here about the use of this shampoo and, you know, what he recommends.
I've been haunted by this question for so long that anyone who buys shampoo from my salon gets one of these things with video instructions on how to use every single product, because I get it. Not everybody can watch all of my videos, but you need to know how to use shampoo. It's extremely important. The first rule of shampoo is it never goes on your ends. Shampoo is meant for your scalp, where the oil is and where all the dirt is. This should never go on your ends because it will dry them out. The only reason you've been getting away with using Pantene on your ends for all these years is because Pantene doesn't actually work. It doesn't actually get your hair clean, so it doesn't dry your ends out. So please, everyone within the sound of my voice, this is your one opportunity to do your good deed for the day. Please tell everyone you know not to use shampoo on your ends. It will dry them out. Spread the good word, please. Hopefully you learned something by hanging out with me today.
Love that. Yeah, perfect. I mean, again, a lot of what he's said is incredibly obvious, but I don't think there's enough of us preaching to our clients about these things that we do naturally, or we do because we were taught a very long time ago. And this was a great reminder of all of those things that we should regularly be telling our clients. And actually what he's saying there and what he said in this video makes absolute sense. So Chris, the Blowout Professor, excellent stuff. Love your content. Subscribed. We'll be watching more. Hope you've enjoyed today's episode of The Life of Hair. If you have, please subscribe. And I'll see you again very soon for another episode of Life of Hair.